We're now live for our Sunday collective. Hi, Ma. Good
Hello,
morning.
good morning, everyone.
So, as we're waiting for people to join in, could you tell me a little bit more about what this amazing topic of modern education is all about? So, I had sort of teased everyone with a little bit of an intro talking about how tech and evolution, and as we move into the future, there are new spaces and new environments. So we moved from the jungles, from the forests, into these concrete jungles and concrete forests,
And into the machines.
and into the
and
machines
the bots.
and the bots. And as AI keeps developing, as we sync the human experience with the silicon experience, which is like the artificial, digital, virtual experience, then there is a new skill set and a new way to survive that is required or interact with these new spaces. And that is what today's discussion is going to be about, that what is education first, and then how with every expansion of modernity, there is a modern education. So could you first tell us, like, in your definition, what all encompasses education and who are the holders of knowledge that dictate the education that we receive?
The holders of all the knowledge is basically one chakra in every human being, and that's the Kundalini chakra, where all the records of all previous lifetimes are generated, assisted. And I say that it's like the frequency of sound that is being explored into time and space and consciousness. And just like we have the lungs that assist us to breathe, the instrument of the mind is the brain. Just like the instrument of breathing is the lungs. So the brain, the mind, the intelligence, the consciousness, all the different layers, whether you talk about the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, all those, and all the information that we have from previous lifetimes is sitting in this Kundalini chakra, and it's waiting to explode. It's waiting to create new destiny. It's waiting to create your creativity, your artistic, self, your emotional self. Even your happiness quotient comes from the same Kundalini chakra. So the whole construct of education begins in the seed program of your Kundalini. And this seed is initiated into our realm at the time of birth. And then, of course, the parents are the keepers of education, and how they are going to become instruments of time and space and environment, and how they're going to develop your consciousness. What are the emotional triggers they're going to set forth? What are the inquisitiveness territories that they're going to let you explore? And you're going to then, become capable and able, or you're going to be demorphed and disfigured by the implementation of their own insecurities. And in that, of course, we go to school and we go to college and we do, study, and we
learn a skill set, or we go to a vocational training,
and we go to our grandparents and to other human influences, and even nature. I know that when children are really, really small, people are going to tell them what the dog does and what the cow does and what the bird twitters and sings, and so those are things that sound is the most important. That is the transference of knowledge. And when we go back to Vedic knowledge in the Vedas, it was also always transferred through sound.
Yes.
If we go into Egypt and, we talk about the ancient civilizations, and, when we look at how knowledge was transferred, it was transferred through sound. When we go to Jerusalem and we look at, the transference of all the
Talmudic knowledge,
it is through the spoken word. if we go into Kyoto, Japan, even into Buddhist teachings and all, the Lotus Sutras, they were always transferred by
the instruction is always sound. So
yeah.
even in a modern context, when you go to university or colleges or even school, yes, we have our textbooks, or we have visual cues that assist the student and the teacher, but ultimately it's, are you listening to what the teacher is saying? And that's how, that is such a it seems so simple, but Ma, the way that you've highlighted it is, yes, that all knowledge transference is through sound. And
the other point I wanted to establish right in the beginning is that our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, and every pore and cell of our skin, the touch aspect of our body, is all synchronized through our spinal column. And it rests in the Kundalini chakra. So how we see, how we hear, how we touch the truth, how we taste, and how we smell is all controlled by associations of previous lifetime, and also how our parents treat us, or whoever is the caregiver is treating you as a little baby, because we understand and we imbibe more than 90% of our knowledge by the time we are 5 years old. So intervention, not recently, maybe 2 years ago would be more like it. I'd gone to a cinema hall to watch a movie, right? And then I was very wondering that there was this 1.5-year-old child who had come with his parents. And then the parents were very busy being intimate with each other and, doing public display of affection and everything. And what was the child doing? The child was sitting on the phone and was playing with the screen and looking at some cartoons, and every time the picture disappeared, nudged the parents, and the parents quickly put it back on. And then after a few minutes, I was watching that the child learned in that instant how to bring the picture back. So that was education, but what was it doing? Was it stimulating the child to learn something from those pictures, or was that making the child more lonely and self-centric? So, and would the child be finally very eccentric in its interaction with human beings and with plants and things? That was a trigger of isolation. Instead of showing affection to the child, they were so busy with each other. And why did they have that child? I'm still thinking 2 years later. Sometimes when I think of education, that what are the parents doing? How are they, interacting? So in the last 2 years with the pandemic, I feel that instrument of education has further magnified, because children are not having interaction with other children. They're not even going to the classrooms and the teachers. They're just dealing with the screen, and they have the capability of switching off their screen and doing whatever, Sometimes they're not even dressing up to go to school, not having a bath. So those are all instruments of learning and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching the truth. So I think that we are going to be working on the 4 basic constructs of our consciousness, our mind, our intelligence, and our brain. So I think that's what education structure, and of course the Kundalini chakra, though of course a lot of people would say, what about the third eye? The third eye is only the command giving chakra. It's whatever the Kundalini is going to feed it, it's going to command your body to do. It's going to tell you how to speak, how to revert back, how to answer your exam paper. But finally, it's the knowledge is stored in the Kundalini.
So then are you saying to us, Ma, that education is not necessarily knowledge and truth?
Yeah, because that's... whatever is truth for me cannot be the truth for
someone else. So education is more about the need of the circumstances and the hour, and then the instructions that we receive from these knowledge holders.
And the experience.
Is it information holders or knowledge holders?
Information, and sometimes knowledge holders as well. If you have a guru, he is holding the knowledge and is removing the ignorance and the darkness and is bringing the light. And your parents could also be your gurus, could also be instruments and sending out the frequencies of sound to instruct you, to awaken you to your own creative impulse and share what they know with you.
So if we were to do like a visual diagram, then what are the pathways that education would lead us to? So from the discussion thus far, I can see that yes, it could be truth. It could be a truth that education is leading us through. It could be knowledge. It could be information. It could also be a certain kind of enlightenment or, illumination on a subject or a discipline. So it could be spiritual in nature. It could be material in nature. And so as modernity seems to evolve us to these new spaces, so if we, go back a few millennia, then even the evolution of tools for agriculture are considered like a modern implement in that day.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always say that modernity is an ongoing project of humanity. And so in this ongoing project of humanity, what should we most pay attention to?
We must most pay attention to learning.
Whether it be new skills, to be inquisitive.
To be courageous and to really be inspired to see how other people do the same thing and how you do it differently, and is their way better, is your way better. Because I found that the people who are very curious about life and living life, they are very, very sure of where they're going. And the other part of it is that if you're not inquisitive enough, then you're fearful, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's the spectrum. So when you're fearful, you've already lost the battle 90%, because the mind and the brain and the consciousness is already working on, it's like churning out more fear. Because there is the law of attraction in the universe, and that is that like attracts like, and energy follows thought. So whatever you're going to be inspired to create in your physical anatomy and your aura anatomy and your auric fields and your energy fields, you're going to resonate and attract that back from the universe. And the universe is sometimes very punishing.
Yes.
And sometimes very creatively inspirational and is collaborative. And in that collaboration, you will learn to also share with others. You will also generate gratitude in your heart. You will also have curiosity. And you will move away from hypocrisy and control. And you will want to dovetail your every action to a unified oneness with nurturing the other as much as you want to be nurtured for your own, patterns of learning and education and intelligence. And so I always started with that when the soul comes into the womb, there is a lot of reflection and contemplation. And that reflection and contemplation comes into very deep effect when the soul hears the sound or the voice of the mother and father in conversation. So depending the triggers of the Kundalini chakra, really exploring the seed program that is centered there, is coming from the sound or the vibrations of affection and, love. That's why a pregnant woman is always told to surround herself with happy people, to have good thoughts, and to, be spoken politely and respectfully, and to be given, even if she has an instinct of wanting to eat something in a particular flavor, they always say that it's very important to fulfill that, because it could be the soul being very curious about that flavor, or that, in traditionally, I remember in our homes, whenever people were pregnant, they would always give gifted religious books and books with happy stories, and they would inspire the mother, because even what she was reading was like a sound vibration that was impregnating the soul consciousness and developing the brain formats or the
brain frequencies
and layers of awakening. And so when the soul is listening, there is reflection and contemplation. And the 9 months in the womb is like a very, very deep mindful meditation of gratitude at one level, to be given a body to complete the spiritual goals that the soul has set out for. And at the same time, the separation from the divine. So there is a very, very deep contemplation, and there is information. What do the parents' voices do? They bring in information, and in that information is new understanding that the soul may not have experienced this world before.
So it's through the senses of the parents that the life that is being created is already receiving the modern education.
Yes.
That is separate from the spiritual education that the soul already has
bought from the Akashic records or the karmic readings of, viewing life and what they want to experience. We already set up that format in the house of karma. And then the frequencies of our Akashic records intermingle with the Akashic records of our parents, and how we'll dovetail the understanding and the comprehension of all that information, and how we will take it to the level of knowledge, intelligence, wisdom. And then from that knowledge and that intelligence and that wisdom will come a state of effulgence or illumination.
Or enlightenment.
And then finally it's enlightenment. And the most highest is, of course, liberation from your karmic consequences, and where you can then really connect to the frequency of every soul, whether it's the bird, whether it's the tree, whether it's the plant. They're collaborating because there's a symphony of sound, and you are free. You're liberated from binding karma. And you're able to move forward to access the highest knowledge. And the highest knowledge is that there is gratefulness in your heart for every event that transpires. And in that, gratefulness will be born. The seed will burst forth to give you greater and greater opportunities to live your life, to learn, to share, to give that knowledge to other people. And in that giving and sharing of that knowledge will be born a new contemplation, a new reflection, a new ability to listen and hear, and a new ability to meditate and be mindful of what you're saying to other people. Because our speech is, once it's spoken, we can't really take it back.
So coming back to that sound frequency that we began today's Sunday Collective with, and where you were illustrating for us that how in different traditions that it's really the sound frequency, even as you were just speaking and describing the experience of a woman being pregnant and her having the sound frequencies of her thoughts and her emotions are also being transmitted to this new life, to the soul that is growing within her womb, or is downloading, I would say, information. And then how that information will turn into knowledge and interact with the world and unleash some wisdom or unlock some wisdom.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to even before you talked about the sound, you told us that it's a mind, a brain, and consciousness and intelligence. So these four pillars. So could you tell us a little bit more about each and how they are different and how they interact with each other? So starting with the brain.
Is the memory bank that keeps and stores information and gives us, it's like a computer, that different files. So it's got them slotted very nicely, and depending on where your mind is wanting that information from, it will completely pop up just when you have the right password and the code and you know which file to access, right? And then the consciousness is the experiences that you've had with those events in previous lifetimes. You have recorded those emotional reactions, the triggers of anger, the fear, the helplessness, the worry, the insult, maybe even some greed and some anxiety and depression and sadness. These are things that you could be bringing from the Akashic records you've downloaded and put it in a file, and that file is the only password you know, so you keep pressing and you keep feeling and you keep getting insulted, and then you keep thinking that why is my parent, not being nice, and then parents will always look at it as sibling rivalry, but it could be something much, much more deeper, and instead of doing intervention and reassuring the soul, the parents could just be triggering off, and saying that, oh, you're always sulking, and we really love your brother. He's so good, so intelligent. He always comes first in class, and this and this and this. And there's a lot of appreciation for material, acquisitions or achievements. And that then further dwarfs the other soul, right? So this interaction, this dance of intelligence and transference of knowledge and the enlightening consciousness that is the soul journey is always to become more and more conscious about what are we doing here, why were we born, what is the purpose of my life. These are all very deep questions of self-education that every soul goes through. But sometimes people are looking for answers outside, and the answers are actually very deeply entrenched in the Kundalini chakra, and all the answers are sitting there. And that's why people who, connect with themselves do come up with a lot of brilliance and a lot of creativity, whether it's a songwriter, whether it's a book, they're writing a book, or they're doing an experiment, or coming up with tech and artificial intelligence. These are all instruments of deep insight that each one of us has the capability and the connection. It's just that we are not watering that seed enough, or our parents have not watered that seed of intelligence sufficiently for us to be able to ignite that realm of knowledge and to download it. It's like a river. It just keeps flowing. And sometimes we are not even aware that we are drenched.
And then the mind is witnessing all of these
Yeah, the
three?
mind is witnessing and sometimes criticizing and complaining and being sad and depressed and unhappy, or being euphorically happy all the time, and people wonder why is this person so happy.
So that's coming from the mind, not the consciousness.
Not the consciousness. The consciousness is very, very subtly watching, is like the witness. Is watching and what is the information, and is storing and saying, okay, I'll use this later and I will take this. And sometimes we are very spontaneous in our consciousness. So Sat Chit Anand, right?
Yes.
So Sat is the truth of every event or every situation, is that we are investigating like, just inquisitive, or sometimes we are very mechanical in our search for the truth.
For the truth.
And we say this plus this is truth and this plus this is untruth. And we just judge people. Sometimes we are not willing to be open to understanding that there could be another side of the truth, right? And then is the consciousness that you are the chit, the awareness, the witness self that is really looking deep into the knowledge of previous lifetimes, and is looking at the knowledge that they are imbibing in this lifetime, and also that they have some intuitive vision of the future, and they are wondering that how are they going to synthesize the three and create an intelligent path for themselves to walk with like-minded people, with associations of previous lifetimes that will either come to assist you or even to give you some pain and hardship. So I'm reminded of a little story of two friends, and they were walking through a jungle, and then they could hear a bear coming. So one of the friends knew how to climb a tree very high. So he just left his friend, and he climbed up the tree, and he thought that he was really, really safe. Now this other friend could hear the bear coming, and he was thinking, what should I do? What should I do? And then somewhere in his consciousness, he remembered that bears don't like living people. So he'll have to pretend that he's dead. So when the bear came near, he stopped breathing and he just lay there. And so the bear came and sniffed and all, and then he went away. So then the friend who was on top of the tree came down and said that, what did the bear say to you? So this friend who was said that he said that don't trust people who climb trees. So the thing is that in that moment there can be a life review of you don't know who told you that bears don't like dead people, or so that trigger of that chit, that consciousness
is the trigger for the knowledge then?
Yeah.
And the downloading of the information
and the understanding and the wisdom co-joining.
Okay. And then the brain can communicate, is like the distiller of that, is the filter.
And the mind is then taking it and then just acting on it.
Wow.
And the body is responding to the instructions of the third eye chakra, remember?
Yes.
I said it's the command giving
chakra.
And the chit is somewhere deeply entrenched behind the third eye chakra, and again through the Sushumna it's very connected. The Sushumna is the central channel of awareness that's passing through our spinal chakra, or the central line, or the cord of light that is filtering the knowledge, filtering the information, filtering the intelligence, and bringing illumination in that moment. So you will associate, right?
So that is really very illustrative, that there are many moments in our life that transform and educate us in that one moment.
Yeah.
And our entire worldview shifts or changes or evolves. And so with that, I am going to invite all those listening in, if they have any questions this morning regarding anything, whatever they feel like discussing. But I'm going to continue my discussion with Ma on this this evolution of the self through this brain, mind, consciousness, intelligence combine. And so my next question would be that how do you see us walking into the future? Or what would your sort of instruction be for everyone across ages and cultures and time and space, that when we are walking into a future that is ours, it could be at a personal level, social level, national level, international, global level, because all these futures do affect us at different potencies and frequencies, that then what should our connection with our mind, brain, consciousness and intelligence be as we walk into these futures?
See, the basic thing is that what is happening in today's world is that a lot of, because of the pandemic and because of the frequencies of some fear and ill health and governments responding to lockdowns and things and schools shutting down and all, there is a lot of regeneration of a new identity or a new way of living, where the young born people, children of age 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 even, they are very isolated. So I always tell parents that you must find time to play with your kids, to give them association at their level of comprehension, creativity, maybe even telling stories, and even drawing, painting, maybe even playing some hands-on football or sports that are not collective, because to get a football team together would maybe not be possible in this time, because everybody's self-isolating because of the virus. So how parents are making the children very dependent on the machines. So, the machine is there to log into school, and the phone is there, and smartphone is there to, get the homework or the WhatsApp messages. And even for entertainment, parents are turning on the TV or they're giving them, their fun time with
the screen, basically.
Yeah, basically with the screen and the cartoons and everything, and they are okay with hours and hours and hours of just staring. So, basically we are turning off a new generation of an emotional response.
We're turning off their emotional
Yeah.
response. Okay.
Because they are not willing to, respond to human behavior. They don't know how to interact, how to respect, how to do things for others. So it's very mechanical.
Right.
And they are looking at it for entertainment. They're looking at it for, information. It's the same machine that's telling them. There's no human contact. So
No
that
human investigation.
Yeah, and no curiosity and no semblance of the real world, right?
Yes.
They're living in like a make-believe world. And even, in the olden times, maybe even 2-3 years ago, there used to be a lot of relatives coming, going, friends, neighbors, interaction. Even that has stopped. So there's a lot of
The
isolation.
human interface has now changed to a digital
Or an
interface.
artificial intelligence just talking to you,
Yes.
telling you what to do. And so it's very interesting. The other day I was also looking at some education apps on television being advertised, and they were also talking about how the teacher is going to interface with the machine, and the machine is, you can download. So that means that the teacher is not even live. It's just a,
pre-recorded class.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
they are not able to ask questions or quench their thirst of curiosity or clear their doubt about. It's just that whatever the information is coming at them, they have to just absorb it and see how they react. Whether it's right or wrong, they don't know.
So that's a really fabulous example, Ma, because immediately as you're saying this, in my mind, what's coming up is that then that really means that all of us are living in an in-between state.
Yeah.
Because our bodies might be experiencing what's happening in the present, and we are also simultaneously looking at and investigating the past, because that's a pre-recorded knowledge source. So how is that different, like watching a pre-recorded class? Because this is a very interesting point. May I ask a
Yeah.
question here? That what is the difference between watching a pre-recorded class or a session, like, or the Sunday Collective that will be put up on YouTube in full? So when people are rewatching it, what is the difference between that and the difference between, say, reading knowledge through a book? Like, are the instruments of like where knowledge is held like impact the way that we are educated the same way live sound versus recorded sound? I'm not sure if I'm clear,
because
but that's my
when
question.
you're reading a book, I think I get your point. When you're reading a book, there is a sound frequency that it's transforming, which is a conversation that you're having with yourself, with your higher self, with your intelligence, with the brain, at what it's associated or experienced, or what it would like to experience in the future. So that conversation is generating a curiosity, which then you can discuss with other human beings, maybe even share with your friends, and talk about how it would be. And it would be so much fun, to play and have this game and then reinvent yourself as characters from that book. And then you would dress up and do things that would be collaborative. And other people would have different ideas, or they would say that no, they felt that this character was like this and this. So there would be an personalized interaction with that book and that character and the places that they went to. And now, in this, digital age, you are just showing the picture of that place. So your imagination is not really working. You've already seen it, done that, and you've been force-fed of the image. So how will you know that it could be something that your imagination from previous memories could create, and you could have that interaction with other people? So it's very different, this forcing. And I see a lot of guns and shootings and espionage, and kids really going into that hate and kill and kind of violent reinforcement, and very little about spiritual awareness and consciousness, or even about nature and about imbibing knowledge about flora and fauna and things. So as children, we went out in the garden, we saw the ladybirds, we saw the butterflies, and we saw all those things directly, the earthworm and the caterpillar and the butterfly in the pupa stage hanging. So, but children nowadays are very, misinformed, because recently when I had asked somebody that I said, what did you eat? And they said, we ate some peas. And I said, where did the peas come from? And they said, from a can.
Yes.
Or from the freezer. So, so that is, they don't know that it grows, the farmer grows it, what it looks like, how you peel it, and how then you cook it. And then that gratitude or that connection with Mother Earth is lost. So it's very mechanical, and it's distanced from the reality. So we are living in a little bit of an artificial world where human contact is absent, or it's very limited.
Or it's
modified.
It's
modified. And the information that's coming at you, the difference between the recording or even this as we are talking is that if, right now you're listening, then you could type in your question, right?
Yes.
And you could show your curiosity or take the conversation in a different way.
There's like a real world impact even through the digital interface.
Yeah. And then once this is recorded, then there's no more interaction. Then it is the way it is, and you will, every time you watch it, will be the same information.
Yes.
The story won't change.
The story won't change.
So the stories have to change for us to be able to learn, to investigate, to realize, to conceptualize that there could be different ways of doing things. And, even if you go on a cookery show, they're going to show you the recipe, the way they're making it right now. But supposing that you don't have a certain ingredient, and then you just tell them that I don't have this, and they could give you another ingredient to replace it, or they could teach you how to do it without, right?
Yes.
So it's called reinventing yourself all the time in this process of life.
I love that even in this digital live classroom, like even for students who are having a live interaction with the teacher, even though it might be through an app, but because the teacher is actually going to be there, there is that's fascinating and so exciting to know that there is that moment of transformation that's just waiting to happen, and how the student and the teacher can both interact and evolve the download of comprehension and the access to knowledge. But once it's recorded, that's the story. I love that you said that is the story is not going to change after that.
Yeah.
Until there is another live interaction. Oh, that's beautiful. And so we have some opportunities of change and transformation with a few questions. So with your permission, may I ask them?
Yes.
So we have Arpita Saxena, who joins in. She says, hello. Namaskara, Guruma. She asks that in a classroom, everyone is passed on the same education, but not everyone has the ability to absorb and assimilate the same of what is being shared. Hence there are different marks or scores and different levels of achievement. How do we maximize from the knowledge that we receive? That's a beautiful question.
We maximize the knowledge that we receive by allowing our eyes to hear, our ears to see, our sense of smell to recognize, and our taste to be open to different flavors. And finally touching the truth that it doesn't have to be exactly the way you've seen it. I've been a teacher and I have taught children in a classroom. And yes, if there are 45 children in a classroom and you're teaching a subject or a lesson, I found that the children who were very curious, who asked questions, who actually listened and heard the lesson and contemplated and conjectured on what it was that was really being said and asked further questions to sort of satiate their thirst for knowledge, they really understood the lesson. And then there were some others who were very disinterested. And then there were some others who were thinking about how their mother slapped them in the morning or didn't give them the glass of milk, or, she didn't wake up in time and they nearly missed the bus, or maybe the father had to drop them because they missed the bus and shouted at them. So the children have other information as a replay going on in their head. So they are not in the present moment. They're living in the past, or they're living, maybe they have a wedding party to go to in the evening. So they're not concentrating and they're thinking of, all the fun that their mother's having at home, preparing for the party. And they are in class and they're missing out on the fun. So depending on what information is going on, what is churning, the people who are really in the moment in the classroom interacting with the teacher, and they're curious and inquisitive and absorbing the knowledge, they become the best students.
I love that, because and I also have to say that there are exceptional teachers just like you, Ma, in our life, our guru and our guiding light. And I remember that because before I went to boarding school, I was in a day boarding, and we had we had many exceptional teachers, but one super exceptional teacher, as you were just saying, their image and their interaction with all of us as a class came back, and I just want to share it. That just as you were saying, that there was we would have a lesson before lunch, so our lunch would be at about 12:45, and we would have a lesson from 12 noon, like midday, till 12:45. And there were a lot of us who were playing sport, or maybe had higher metabolic rates, and so some of us would always feel hungry in that lesson plan. And this one teacher, whenever it was their class, they would always say that if you are feeling hungry, you can open your lunch and start eating it now while the lesson is going on. So that leads me to a question just right now, that when we are eating or drinking something while knowledge is being given to us, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing, because you're then through the act of eating and connecting to the different flavors, you're also connecting to the distribution of the knowledge that is coming up. And but then again, it would be that if you're not liking what your mom gave you in the tiffin, then you could be thinking of all the things that she should have given you, and that could take you away from
the lesson plan as well. Yeah. So it is an interesting experience.
Yeah.
It's an experience. Oh,
because
wow.
I remember, just to highlight this point more,
yes,
that, we were two art teachers in school, and this, person who was also teaching some of the classes would always supposing it was a lesson on learning how to draw leaves, right?
Yes.
So she would break a few twigs from some tree, put it in a Coca-Cola bottle and put it on the table, and she would sit and read her book, and the children had to just do the still life drawing, right? And then there was me, who would take the children with their drawing books, and we would go into the park or into the field, and we would look, and everyone would choose their own twig or their own structure of nature, what they wanted to draw. So at the end of it, when we had the art exhibition, all the kids who I had taught, who had gone out and had conceptualized and constructed their own artworks, got all the awards. So
because each one was different and each one was their experience.
And then, she came back, and then the principal, and we had this great meeting. And then, so the principal was asking, why did her children not get any awards? And so finally, the construct was that they were looking at a very stationary, linear, visual, and they were not so interested. because all their senses had not come awake, and the experience was missing, and they were touching the leaves and bringing them close and seeing the fine details of what was happening in that leaf. Maybe there was even a ladybird sitting on some leaf that
Yes, it
a
could
student
be,
had drawn. I
or
still
a grasshopper
remember.
or anything.
So it's how you experience life, and what is the stimulation, and how are you encouraging all your senses to, learn. So it could be a student sitting studying for his exam, and his mother brings him a cup of coffee, and that coffee is so delicious, and it's the aroma is very satisfying, and he's also thinking of the love that his mother is bringing him. And so in that moment, as he's drinking the coffee, all the knowledge that he's reading could also be flowing in much more easily,
Absolutely.
because it's about association.
Wonderful.
So when the exam will come, he'll think of, oh, I read that, and mom made me that coffee, and then everything will be.
So it can either become a co-joint, collaborative, sensory experience of what you're drinking, eating, sensing, like the children who went with you, Ma, into the park or the
Park
forest.
and
Or then it could become a very distracting stimuli.
Yeah.
So that depends on then our consciousness coming back
And
to the
our,
brain, mind, consciousness, intelligence.
Collaborating together, and sometimes because of the experience, it could go the negative way as well, right?
Absolutely.
When you have abusive parents, or parents who are insensitive to your needs, and there could be a child who could be getting dressed for school and is really uncomfortable in the shoes. I remember once this child was crying in class, and I kept asking him that, what is it? And he said that his shoes were too tight, and then we saw that they were really, his feet were cramped in, but he said that his parents said that they don't have the time to go get him new shoes, so he'll just have to tolerate. So then I remember we told him he can take off his shoes and sit in class. And then, of course, we wrote a letter to the parents, and then they did get him new shoes. So it could be sometimes children are just, parents don't have the time to listen to, they just think that they're flimsy excuses, and they could be real issues.
Real issues. So how do we become even more aware to ourselves to know and be confident to take that action? So what would, like in an alternate situation, I'm just thinking about this little child, that what confidence could his parents or life have given him that he himself might have just taken off his shoes and then just told the teacher, that in this case, which would be new, that my feet are hurting, so I've taken off my shoes.
Yeah, because he was very fearful that he would get scolded. And that there was a certain uniform code that he had to be dressed in, the belt and his tie and his shoes and socks. And then I remember writing a letter to his parents that he's allowed to wear any, I'm giving him permission to come in any shoes till such time that they can find something, the school uniform shoes, till they can arrange it.
Oh, wow.
And I think he came one day with another pair of shoes that were like party shoes. And then the next day, the parents had found the time to go in. So it's also how the authority figure is responding to, it could be somebody could say that, no, the parent, the teacher, the principal, or the teacher in charge could also say that you don't come to school.
Oh, wow. So then you're cutting short the opportunity for education and for awareness and for knowledge.
Yeah, because you're just being strict and saying, no, you can't come to school, with the other pair of shoes. And so you stay home so the child could sit at home and have a trauma for the rest of his life that his parents didn't buy him the shoes in time. And then he didn't get the lesson, and then he failed his exams. It could be a long, long, long history.
It'll have like a domino effect or like it'll have a connectivity issue.
Yeah. And then, other children are also very mean.
Yes.
And they can also start making fun and poke fun at the child that, oh, your parents don't buy you shoes and you have to cry. And then the crying becomes like a solidified response to every time life is not going the way you planned it. It could be, a response of sadness and depression and abandonment and not enough care. It can become a solidified memory in the Kundalini chakra, and then the third eye chakra is always giving that same response in the human body. So it's very, very technically, just like a computer, our body is also synchronized and is working. And sometimes we are not sure where the thoughts come from, where the responses emotionally come from, where our creative impulse comes from. Sometimes because our creative impulse has been so thwarted, we don't even experience it or allow it to come forth because, supposing it's just even as cooking, somebody's cooked in particular way and the family says, oh, this is so distasteful. Then the next time they get an inspired thought, they will not experiment.
It thwarts them. It's like a suffocation that happens.
Spat down.
Like a spat down, yeah. So Dr. Garg says that with this interaction, they would like to take the opportunity to really extend their thanks and gratitude towards all teachers who have been very, very creative in their approach, especially with younger kids. And how are you and they so compassionate and thoughtful?
Yeah, we should be. I think all teachers have that generosity of spirit, and I send out healing to all of them every single day, and also to all the parents, that they are the first teachers to the children, that they should be very compassionate, very encouraging, and very engaging. I think parents who engage with their kids are really, really inspiring souls to unravel their highest intelligence and to walk the path of their individuality. I think somewhere parents don't want their children to be individual beings. They want them to be the way they see them. And that can sometimes be very, very difficult and can lead to deep depression for children. And they cannot have that rather weave or that ability to live life with great fun and joy and happiness.
And enthusiasm. That's really
So knowledge
potent.
is very inspiring because it can be very simple things that can really
transform my experience.
Yeah.
And with that, we have Ritu auntie, who asks that, love to you, ma'am.
Love you too, Vidya.
Her question or her thought is that aren't parents too triggered differently with regards to their different children, like if they have more than one child, due to previous births? And thus the parent has a different disposition towards these various children or two children.
Yeah, but remember that the parent has soul karma with that soul, and even though there were some bad experiences in a previous life, they have the ability to become better at that job and to inspire that soul to become a loving pattern of experience for them. So, yes, there are previous life karmas, but we can heal them. We can recognize them. We can see how we are not being so nice to our children, and we are differentiating in our behavior. Then we have to really look deep and see that what is it that we are doing wrong. Because remember, like attracts like, and energy follows thought, and this is the structure of the universe. So if you have encouraged a soul to come into your life, that soul has also come to give you some life lessons, and you have to assist that soul in the life lessons that you have to live together. And if you want to change them, then you have to change your response to that soul as well. And you have to assist, and we have to show the way to do it differently. And as the patterns will change, the association will also change very, very nicely and positively. And otherwise it can be that the soul is just hurtling through another corridor of pain and depression and unhappiness and sorrow and this lack of love from the parents. A major amount of people come to me because they have been tortured by their parents. And then we have to do intervention, we have to do healing, we have to do forgiveness. And it always boils down to when their parents were not very nice to them. So we have to be very, very vigilant that if we have taken on the role as a parent, we have to bring out our compassionate nature, and we have to see what the soul really wants and is seeking, and to be able to provide that. Otherwise, I think becoming a parent is spiritually a very, very difficult path and a very strong path that you have to take, because it's about recognizing what the soul needs and not so much about what the parent needs. And I think parents who are not very good parents always go through that roadmap of, we are parents and you have to do what we say. And, I couldn't become an engineer, but I want you to become an engineer. And I couldn't do medicine because I didn't get the marks, but you have to get the marks. So those are all very debilitating and stifling, patterns for any soul.
I'm laughing because it's true, and I want to cry also because it's true. There are so many parents who put their own ambitions and their unfulfilled dreams as a burden on the children, and not recognizing that the children have their own path and their own dreams and talents. I think more than dreams, it's their own talents, and they're not wanting to recognize that.
I can share a very sweet story of a young girl who was 16 years old, and she had a class 10 board exams, and I got a call from her parents saying that she had slip disc and she couldn't get out of bed and she was in excruciating pain, and could I come and could I heal her? And then of course I had gone to heal her, and I had seen that she was in really, really terrible pain, and the doctors were saying that, it's a nerve pain as well as a physical slip disc. And so she'll have to be in bed for the next 3 months, and she can't go to school and this and that. So when I was sitting with her, I asked her that what is it that's troubling her the most? So you know what she said to me? She said, I really want to study art. And my parents want me to study medicine. And I have to take humanities I want to take, and my parents want me to, they have to choose in class 11
and 12.
So
they were telling her to do like PCMB.
Yeah, and so she said, I don't want to do that. And the parents came in at that moment, and they started shouting and saying that we've already told you that, you as an artist can't be fulfilling your dreams, and you cannot do, as a doctor, you'll be able to do so much good, and there's that. And then finally, I was sending out the healing, and I remember going there almost for 21 days to give a touch body healing every day. And when it finally, she became perfectly fine. And what was the resolution? That she would choose her subjects after her exams.
Okay.
And then, so she was well enough to go and sit in class and study, and her slip disc disappeared, and her nerve pain disappeared, and there was no medicine needed. And she was so thing. And then one day, she went to her grandfather and she told him that, I'm very, very sure I want to study only art. So then the grandfather intervened, the magic of healing, right? And then he told them that, if she wants to study art, let her study art. So the story, I'm cutting it short and fast forwarding it, that she did study art. And she set up her own design label.
Oh, wow.
And she is very, very, very successful in her work. And interestingly enough, she fulfilled what the parents wanted, that she supports a school in, a city
in
a little outside Delhi. And she makes their uniforms, she gives them money for food and, for the children. And I think there are about 500 children in that school. And so she's doing her good service.
Wow.
And she's become very, very, very successful. And she does a lot of export and everything. So finally, and she's never had back pain ever again. because her purpose
Purpose
of
of
life
life.
is fulfilled. The Kundalini chakra was where the seed program of her success was waiting to unfurl, and her parents were just crushing it and crushing it. So, I will take this opportunity to send out healing to all parents, that they must listen to what their children really want to do, because they're geniuses waiting to unfurl their talents on this world, and we need them. We
Yes.
need them to show us a different way of doing things and living well.
So, Ma, as you were speaking, there were a lot of messages where, a lot of the collective and people joining in were asking and requesting for healing for themselves as parents who might have been heartless to their children. And now in their old age, there is a disconnect, and so they're requesting that there should be a resolution, because right now it is very painful, that interaction. So I love what you said, that yes, as a society and as parents,
we also have to learn. That's also part of our education. Remember that we also took birth, and we also have. Life is not about just going to school and college and education. Education is about the gamut of all that you imbibe from the time that you're born till the time that you're dead, and what you're taking forward into the other world, and what is the information that you're going to impregnate the other worlds with, and what is still left to be healed. Because in this journey, if we do get connected to healing, we can heal everything, all the decay, the death, the destruction, the disharmony, the discords, and we can keep ourselves from self-destructing our own intelligence and our power and our strength, because each one of us in the Kundalini chakra has the capability to become a very, very giant tree and to fulfill all our goals, and to gift those leaves of consciousness to others as we touch their lives, and seeds, and plant them in different parts of the world, and travel on, knowing that you have done your good deeds, and those are the seeds that you leave behind for other people to nurture and to take it forward.
That's beautiful, Ma. And we have Harveen, who has a question regarding this love and compassion towards children. She feels that can this showing of love be too much, and how do we balance it with trying to inculcate self-discipline for the children? And her third question is that when we resist the children, then the children value us more when they finally get their desire. So I think basically all three of her questions, if I summarize correctly, is all about
The
control.
false ego.
Yeah, that she as a parent
knows better.
Sometimes
The reality
you don't.
is that you don't know your soul group so well. Your children may be coming from a completely different, place of awareness. They could be coming from a different universe. They could be coming from a different intelligence that you are, when you go to a medical college, everybody's studying medicine. You go to, a law college, everybody's studying law the same way. The souls that congregate in your family are also like-minded, and the law of attraction have come together to either unravel the beauty of this life or to teach lessons. So how do you diffuse that teaching of lessons is to be cordial, to be respectful, to really listen and hear what are the soul cries of that soul. When a baby is crying, the mother knows this is a wet nappy, this is a hunger, this is some discomfort, this is something maybe poking, pinching, or maybe sometimes just wanting to show affection and, dance and sing with the soul in her arms. So the mother could be responding to all those cries, and she knows. So, to intuitively understand that what is your child really saying and wanting to do, and to inspire them to create, to learn, to explore, and give them experiences, and not keep thwarting them that, oh, I spent so much money, I gave you swimming lessons, you didn't learn how to swim, or, I took you to macrame class and you didn't even make me a single pot holder and you're so bad, you keep doing everything incomplete. These are stories that I hear from parents all the time and from children who have now become parents, and then they really want to wash the scars away so that they don't repeat them with their own children, and that they are willing to learn and to explore and to awaken their children into a higher level of intelligence and stimulate them to emotionally be very strong people. So when you grow with your children, then I think respect is paramount. You have to respect your children. You have to understand that even if they're sitting in their room and maybe watching pornography, what is it that they're trying to fulfill? Maybe they've not got that affection from you, and they have not had enough interaction. Nobody has told them that that's part of human behavior. That is normal. But there has to be a balance, centeredness in how is this whole thing going to unravel in their life. So they are hiding away from something that you're pushing them away from yourself. So a lot of children are coming these days who are very addicted to gaming, to doing things which are tech-based, right?
Yes.
So if they have to listen to a podcast, they have to go. If they want to go on Insta Live, they have to go. If they have to go on Facebook, in the olden days, we used to remember birthdays and things of our friends all the time.
Or phone numbers. How many people remember phone numbers anymore? So we are losing that capacity as humans to hold multiple digit information. I mean, this is like fact. Like this is what a lot of psychological
the other day I was
investigation
asking somebody
happening.
for their phone number, and they said that I'll just call you because I can't remember.
That's very shocking.
Yeah.
And also to sort of go back, Ma, to Harveen's question about discipline, me having been a child at one point,
Yes.
like
all
of us. So whether I look at my, whether I looked at my Nana Nani, my maternal grandparents, or of course Ma, you, that they set a very brilliant example just by their own actions. So if Ma was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 and my Nana ji was going for a 10-kilometer walk, like me and my cousins, like this was something that we saw the elders do, and so we also wanted to be part of that experience. So nobody had to tell us that you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like we were so excited to get up at 3:30 and have our bath and go to temple and help with setting up the the dhoop and the prasad and be in the kitchen and then go for that 10-kilometer walk with my Nana ji at like 7 in the morning. So it is through example and the elders absorbing us into their routine. It wasn't that the elders were telling us a routine to follow that they didn't follow. So if you are not following a routine of discipline and then you're expecting your children that they should suddenly magically prescribe to this disciplinarian reality that you have set forth, they are going to see it as a hypocrisy and not follow it at all or resist it, and then it becomes violent, like how Ma was sharing. So,
and I can share one of my favorite memories of my childhood.
Yes.
That I used to go to my maternal grandparents' house for the summer holidays in Jammu. And I think I was only 6 or 7 years old, and I was very inquisitive of what happened in the kitchen. And in those days, the kitchen fire used to be logs of wood and coal, and the cooking used to be done, and everybody would sit in the kitchen and be served hot meals. So it was like turn by turn, everybody would come. And so I was very fascinated with this fire and with the act of cooking and all, and making the dough for the rotis. And I used to watch. And one day I told my grandmother that, when I grow up, I also want to cook like you. So she said, but you're grown up enough. So I said, really? So she said, yeah. So you come tomorrow and you can do everything that I do. There's no limit to your capabilities. So I remember my twin sister and I going there in the morning. And then, she had some plastic knife kind of blades ready. And she gave us, I still remember, ghee to cut and to peel and to...
Like a blunt knife. She must have
Yeah.
given you a blunt knife. Yes, ma'am.
And so we, started cutting that ghee, and we learned how to cut the tomato and all. And then she gave us the dough, and she said, okay, now, you make the dough exactly, little by little, how she was putting the water in. So she had so much dough to make, and we had so much to make. And then we were given rolling pins to roll our little 2-inch by 2-inch chapatis, and with our tiny little hands, and she cooked them for us, and my grandfather even ate one that we had made. So it was like it's such a strong memory of her inspiration, woman to woman, not showing us that we are too young and we should not come into the kitchen, and it's not something, the fire is not good. And I think by age 9, we were very expert cooks. So the point is that what is the stimulus, what is that respect, what is that generosity of sharing, what is that time investment that, she was patiently waiting for that ghee. She was cutting it into very nice squares, and we were chopping it all over the place. And we were just going. I still remember it wasn't plastic, it was an iron knife.
Which would have been very blunt.
With the wooden handle.
Yes.
And she had got these 2 tiny things, and we were, so that we don't chop our fingers.
Yes.
And were quite blunt. And it was really fascinating. And we would spend so many hours, and we learned so many recipes from her over the years that I still carry as very treasured memories. So what is the stimulus that you are respected by an adult? What is that intervention? What is that creativity? And what is that impulse? So that chit or that consciousness is then dipping into the reservoir of all the memories of all the foods that I ever cooked in all my lifetime. And I have all the recipes. And I'm a spontaneous cook today. I don't need to follow a recipe. I make my recipes as I go along. So that is the ability of a human that you can nurture in each other. So whether it's knitting, whether it's, macrame, whether it's crochet, I think parents don't teach these skills to their children, but they teach a very important lesson of how stitch by stitch you can make a garment. One stitch at a time.
It is the patience, the collaboration, and then the joy of the final result.
Yeah.
And I think that also summarizes that patience, that collaboration, and the joy of the final result also summarizes beautifully the process of education, wherever that is the truest education.
That was more education, right?
Yes.
And then my grandmother used to sit in the evening in her free time, and she used to spin the charkha and, make the yarn. And it was fascinating. So we have seen it and done it hands-on, and even grinding the grain, right? The gehu. It was not coming in Ashirvad
packets,
poly-packed atta.
No.
And the multigrain and the diabetic grain and this grain and dalia, everything was done at home.
Absolutely.
And it was like an endless collaborative effort, and everybody was participating. And in that experience, we learned so much.
Absolutely. So Kavita Mitta says that is it the time investment that sometimes we walk away from?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Time investment and the ability to cherish another person or another individual, and also your home, also your trees, your plants. The other day I was seeing somebody was in Lucknow, and they were showing me around their apartment, and I saw that they had, in all the balconies, they had lots and lots of plants were growing. And I said, oh, how fascinating. So you're really fond of gardening? He said, no, I just like looking at the plants. So I said, who does the gardening? He said, I have a gardener. It's a multi-storied. He was on the 4th floor of an apartment. And I was thinking that there's just a few plants that he could have nurtured and taken care of, but he liked them. They were part of his entourage of karmic souls from previous lifetimes. So now, was he going to be responsible to murdering them, or was he going to be generous enough to make them live? So if he took care of them himself, and they would flower and spring forth and be very collaborative, and give him also the essential ability to grow his business. Remember, when a plant is growing and you're nurturing and taking care of it, other things in your life are also growing on the principle of like attracts like.
Oh, wow.
And then you're giving it to the gardener to grow, and you just admire looking at it. So that means that you're going to be very lazy in your own business, in your own profession. You're going to procrastinate. You're going to keep postponing and
outsourcing your progress.
And then sometimes your business is going to die because the plant died.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
It's a symptom.
It's a symptom of
our personalized space.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
What is happening in our personalized space.
Wow.
So I know I can share another story of personalized space. I went to somebody's house once, and they had lots of fungus growing on the walls because it was water damaged.
Okay.
And then I was looking at them, and I was thinking, oh God, they really have so many things growing. So then they started sharing with me, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I just told them, they thought I'm going to give them some great remedies, and all I told them was, get a painter, get this wall repaired.
Okay.
Because all that mold and that fungus that was growing on the walls was actually growing in their life situations. And they just did it post haste, and everything beautifully rectified. So there are lots of living beings in that fungus, in that mold, that are also going to affect and corrode and destroy your purpose of life. So be very careful of what you're growing in your environment, in your home, in your life, in your thoughts, in your Chetakash, and what is your mind doing with the brain, and what is the brain throwing up to give you guidance or to give you some patterns of misinformation, because your mind can conjecture and pretend that this is the truth, but sometimes it's not. You have to investigate very deeply. And what is the response that you're giving to your children, to your husband, to your wife, to even the servants, and even to the plants, and even the mold on the wall.
So to really take stock of our personal spaces as well.
Keep them clean.
And how they are manifesting things in our life.
Clutter is actually all beginning in the mind and the brain. And then it's spreading as a disease. Then you're cluttering your environment. You're keeping clothes folded on the sofa and not in the cupboard. And sometimes you have drawers pulled out from your cupboards and they're on the floor because you're too lazy to open the drawer and take out your clothes. So you just pick from the floor and keep dressing, and when the dhobhi brings the clothes back, you put them right in the drawers right there. So it can be a very mesmerizing artistic display of all the drawers on the floor, but it could also be great clutter with your life going nowhere. So be very careful of what you're inviting into your life, because remember, like attracts like. Whatever is happening, even to Harveen's question of what's happening, with the children, is finally what's happening inside of you. If you're looking at your children and always criticizing them, then think again.
Yes.
Because if you're criticizing them, 100% they're criticizing you as well. So change your thought, appreciate, find something to be grateful for.
I think that's a great, like an underlining moment where we are not grateful. We may say that we're grateful, but we're not really experiencing it in our private thoughts. We're very critical, even self-critical. So does that need to change, Ma? And how can we change that in a one or two very practical, actionable ways?
See, the thing is that if I look at this beautiful sharing that I did about that child who said that
She wanted to be an artist.
yeah, and also about the peas that they come from a
Yes.
can or from the freezer, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if that parent starts without having done some intervention right in the beginning of taking the child to a farm, showing them how vegetables grow and all, suddenly telling them one day that you have to be really grateful, your father goes to work and he brings the money and you leave this food on the table, and what about the farmer? So child has no sequence of reality of what the mother is actually. So he's just looking at her flummoxed at what is she saying, what is she meaning. There's no history to that concept, right?
Yes.
So I'm reminded of a very interesting story that many people shared with me in my childhood, and it used to always fascinate me. It was about 4 students who were in college, and they had an exam the next day, but they were so busy drinking and partying and smoking some weed and having so much fun that they had not studied. So they decided that they will not give the exam. So then they were summoned by the principal the next day that why did they not show up. So they all said that we had gone out for this party and we had to come back, and then there was a tire puncture, and then our car got stuck and we were on the road in the night, and in the morning we had to get the tire repaired, and then we had to come, and now we've come and we are willing to give the exam, we are fully prepared. So the principal said, okay, I am going to give you, he was a very kind principal. He said, okay, you come back, I'll give you 3 days because I'm busy, and you come back and you do the exam. So he set a date. So they set the date, and he said that this exam is, I really want you to do really well, so I'm going to put you in different rooms. So he put them in 4 different rooms, and then he gave them the question paper, and there were only 2 questions. The first was, what is your name? The second question was, which tire was it? That was it the front left tire, front right tire, back left tire that had punctured?
Oh God, oh my God, it took me a second to sort of
Yeah.
connect to, wow, that's a very smart principle. Oh my gosh.
So did anyone
That
get
was
the
very-
right answer?
No.
They all failed.
Oh
So
God.
they had to repeat the year. Right? So the
Wow.
point I'm making is that depending on the information and the truthfulness of the situation, so parents sometimes just build on information without setting the foundation, without giving the experiential reality of what they're conjecturing about, right?
So it's education without, it's not education, it's just information without knowledge.
Yeah.
So then the bridge of
And
education cannot
be established, and wisdom and illumination and enlightenment and all that cannot be established. It's a stumbling.
And the consciousness, mind, brain, intelligence combined is not activated.
Not activated.
Because
the
it's just like
Kundalini-
it's some
yeah.
arbitrary information like that
Just-
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
That's
it's-
very helpful, Ma. Thank you for that story. And Abha Mami also is resonating as she says that the stories shared here are so valuable by you, Ma, and so beautifully help us to connect with our lives and how
Yeah.
it has healed me especially, she says. She's
So
so
sweet.
thankful. She treasures them.
I treasure you in my life. You're so sweet.
And then we have the handle, the wellness table, who asks in regard to our homes and Ma, like as you were saying, that even fungus or some sort mold or even watering a plant can have either a negative or a positive
Big
impact in our life. So they ask that, ma'am, what about cracks in the wall, like a deep, long crack from floor to ceiling?
Yeah, that is going to separate you from your good fortune. So you should have it covered, filled in with some putty and repaint it, or get a structural engineer to see if there is actually some more intervention to be done. Sometimes there are settling cracks, in the buildings when you have new buildings, and they're easily fixable, but they do have a big, big, big impact, that you are actually being separated from the foundation of good fortune, and you will have to cross the bridge to get to the other side, and sometimes the bridge can be not even there. So I'm going to send healing to your home and to wherever this crack is, that it gets filled up really fast and you can actualize your highest potential of good fortune in the now.
And so as we all seek to unlock this highest potential in the now, Ma, so as we are wrapping up today's Sunday Collective, really grateful for once again always being our guiding light and giving us so many helpful illustrations of what life can be like and how we can also imbibe the tools to get there. And
Yeah.
yes, Ma, I just wanted to sort of ask that as we are wrapping up for today, what is that 3, 4, 5,
four
four things that we can really implement in our daily educating of ourselves in harmony with our environment and ourselves.
The first is that the brain. What can we do for our brain? And for the brain, we have to eat right. So our brain is protein and fat, right? So you must eat some protein every single day, and you must eat some fat. And ghee is or butter is a very good fat. I'm not saying eat lots of butter, but at least a little bit to
like
keep your brain, your
good.
brain very, very, very healthy. The mind is an instrument of criticism. So to use the mind every day in a favorable way to yourself is to keep a gratitude journal. So every day, force yourself to write at least 3 things that you're grateful for, and spend that 1 minute doing this exercise. So your brain will be getting the nutrition, your mind will move away from the critical self and will be, looking at gratitude as an emotion, as an intention and affirmation that you're grateful for the day that you are. Then comes the intelligence. So for the intelligence, you must read a piece of literature, maybe a news article, something that you physically read, not on the screen. Something, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a book, whether it's just a quote for the day or a message from me, to definitely read it. Not to read it on your phone, but to actually print it out and to read it from the paper. It will give you the sensory touch of touching the truth and then imbibing it through your other senses to become information that helps you to evolve your consciousness. And what do you do for your consciousness? To do one spiritual act of charity. And a spiritual act of charity begins by even watering the plant.
I'm clapping. That's so beautiful.
So simple.
Yes.
And of course, feeding, keeping some food for the birds or water for the birds on the terrace, on your balcony, or giving in charity to somebody who is not that wealthy would be a great place to rectify that Kundalini consciousness of solidified good fortune opening up to give you the flowering of and fruiting of your positive destiny. And then we'll all be happy, educated, and sharing our knowledge with the world that we live in.
Grateful, Ma.
I also love you, Divvya.
Done.
See you all.
See you all next week.
Sunday.
Next Sunday. Bye for now.
Love you.